All right, let's just jump right in. Now, what you're about to see, it's not a prediction. Think of it more as a thought exercise. It's a look back from the future, from a fictional memo, dissecting a crisis that kicked off with what everyone thought was amazing news about AI. So, picture this. We're dropping you right into the middle of June 2028, and things are not great. The economy is in a complete tailspin. Unemployment just hit a staggering 10.2%. And you know what? The market, it barely even reacts anymore. That's how bad it is. Traders have gone numb. This is the grim reality we're going to unpack here. And this number, negative 38%. Wow. That's the S&P 500's total drop from its peak just 2 years before. We're talking a brutal, brutal bear market that honestly almost no one saw coming. So that's the big question, right? How on earth did we get here? Because just 2 years earlier, AI was being celebrated as this productivity miracle. This stock market was absolutely roaring. So what went so catastrophically wrong? Okay, let's rewind the tape and find out. You know, the crazy thing is, it all started back in late 2025. And it didn't start with a crash. It started with a boom, a massive, massive leap forward in AI that looked like the best news the tech world had ever seen. So the catalyst was this thing called agentic AI. And all that really means is AI that can take action on its own, without a human prompting it every step of the way. And suddenly, you had these tools where a single developer, one person, could build the guts of a really sophisticated software product in just a few weeks. You know, the kind of thing that big companies pay thousands or even millions for. This changed everything. And this fictional headline, it just perfectly captures the paradox at the heart of all this. You've got ServiceNow, a huge software company, right? They announced these massive layoffs to get more efficient using AI. But the market tanks their stock. Why? Because investors saw the truth. The very same AI that's making them efficient is also destroying their revenue. Because guess what? Their customers are doing the exact same thing, which means they're canceling thousands and thousands of ServiceNow licenses. And this is where this vicious feedback loop kicks in. See, for any single company, it's a totally rational choice. Cut costs, use AI. But when everyone does it at once, it's catastrophic. Every dollar they saved on salary, they plowed right back into making the AI even better, which, you guessed it, made the next round of job cuts not just possible, but inevitable. This created this really bizarre phenomenon the source calls ghost GDP. So on paper, the headline numbers looked amazing. Productivity was through the roof. But here's the catch. All that economic output wasn't coming from 10,000 workers in Manhattan buying lunches and paying rent. Nope. It was being generated by a computer cluster somewhere in North Dakota. And that money, it never actually circulated into the hands of real people in the consumer economy. It was like phantom wealth. Okay, so up until now, we've mostly been talking about the software industry. But this is the point where the crisis breaks containment. It escapes tech and starts to completely rewire the entire consumer economy. And it all happened because the one thing so many businesses rely on, friction, just disappeared. See, AI agents just became the default for everything. And I'm not talking about some clunky assistant you have to ask questions. No, these things ran 24/7, silently in the background, constantly optimizing your life. They're reshopping your car insurance every month, finding the absolute cheapest flight for your vacation, all without you even lifting a finger. And this relentless optimization just obliterated business models that were built on what the source calls habitual intermediation. That's a fancy term for something we all know. It's brand loyalty. It's just accepting that price hike on your subscription because it's a pain to switch. It's convenience. I mean, these weren't just little things. These were multi-trillion-dollar business moats that just evaporated. I mean, just look at the difference here. A human shopper, you, me, we get hungry, we pull out our phone, we open the DoorDash app. It's a habit, right? But an AI agent, it doesn't have a home screen. It has no habits. It has no brand loyalty. It instantly checks DoorDash, Uber Eats, the restaurant's own delivery service, and 20 other options you've never even heard of. And it finds the absolute rock-bottom cheapest and fastest option every single time. All that loyalty that companies spent billions building, poof, gone overnight. And then the agents went after the biggest fee of them all, credit card interchange fees. They just started automatically routing your payments through cheaper networks, like stablecoins, completely bypassing the traditional rails. And this fictional MasterCard earnings report, that was the moment Wall Street woke up and realized, oh no, this isn't just a story about a new product. This is a story about the fundamental plumbing of the financial system breaking down. So this is how the chaos in the real economy starts to infect the financial system. It's like a virus. And it turns out the whole system was basically one long financial daisy chain, a series of interconnected bets all resting on one single core assumption, that the income of white-collar workers would just keep going up. And this is why that assumption was so critical. Look at this. The top 20% of earners, we're talking the exact same white-collar professionals whose jobs were being automated away, they were responsible for almost 2/3 of all consumer spending in the US. So when their income started to vanish, it wasn't a ripple, it was a tsunami hitting the economy. The first cracks appeared in a corner of the market called private credit. So think about a company like Zendesk in this scenario. They got bought out with a huge loan, and that loan was backed by their so-called annual recurring revenue. Super safe, right? Well, not when AI agents start handling customer service tickets for free. All of a sudden, that revenue wasn't recurring anymore, and that massive loan, it defaulted. And from there, the contagion just spread. Because that bad debt, it wasn't just sitting in some hedge fund's vault. It was on the balance sheets of huge life insurance companies. You know, the ones that sold policies to retirees by calling it safe, permanent capital. The retirement savings of Main Street were, without anyone realizing it, tied directly to the software revenues that were just evaporating. And all of that, it leads us to the most terrifying question of all. The entire $13 trillion U.S. mortgage market, the bedrock of the whole system, is built on one simple idea: that prime borrowers, people with great jobs and great credit scores, don't default on their homes. But what happens when those are the very people whose incomes are disappearing because of AI? Okay, let's zoom out for a second and bring this all together. Because this whole fictional scenario, it isn't just some sci-fi story. It's designed to be a powerful warning. A warning about a very real risk that maybe, just maybe, we're underestimating right now. I mean, think about it. For centuries, the model of creative destruction held true. Technology destroyed old jobs, sure, but it always created more, and often better, new ones. ATMs actually led to more bank tellers, not fewer. The internet created entire new industries out of thin air. But AI? AI feels different. What if for every one new job it creates, it makes dozens of others obsolete? That doesn't just bend the 200-year-old economic model, it breaks it. And this right here is probably the single most important line in the entire memo. This is the moment the author snaps us back to reality. He says, you're not reading this in June 2028. You're reading it in February 2026. See? The memo is dated 2028, but it was written in 2026. This isn't a history lesson. It's a warning shot. So the key takeaway here is pretty clear. None of this has to happen. It's not inevitable. Those negative feedback loops we talked about, they haven't started spiraling out of control yet. As investors, as a society, we actually still have time to get our heads around these risks and start preparing. And that leaves us with the final, pretty haunting question from the source. The canary in the coal mine is still alive. The early warning signs aren't flashing bright red, at least not yet. But the question is, for how long? And that really is the multi-trillion-dollar question we all need to start thinking about now.